In the previous video we made a feature component, and in this video we'll continue off on the tool to heroes by adding a service to our application. So what is a service? Well, and why would we use one? So it says that components shouldn't fetch or save data directly, and this data is in our component at the moment, in our heroes component, and we can see that we've got this data, and this is especially true if we're reusing this data. So we can imagine if we're displaying this data in anywhere else in the application, which is probably a common thing to happen, and rather than the duplication of the data in each component plus the how they'll become quite messy, it's nice to have it in a nice location. So we can use a service, and it's also for retrieving data that's not so much hard-coded as well. So let's just go ahead and we'll create a service, and we'll use the Angular CLI to create this. So in a new terminal, ng generate service, and we'll create it in the services directory, and we'll call it hero. Okay. So taking a look at our source in the application, there's components, interfaces, and services. So it created a spec file, but that's just for testing. What we're interested in is this service file. So one thing to note is this @injectable decorator, which takes in the metadata provided in root. So it's essentially available globally in the application, and this injectable, to have that sort of decorated, we need to import the injectable from the Angular core, and this sort of just tells that the component that we're using it in, that it can be injected into its constructor. And that's another reason why we didn't use the constructor, and we used the ng on init. The constructor is reserved for dependency injection. So let's go ahead and we'll get that hero data in there. So we can essentially look at the heroes component here, and we can copy this interface to this service. Okay, let's just see where we're at. Okay, double dot. So just back one directory, go to the services, and not the hero service spec, but just the hero service. Oh, sorry. This is the my apologies. This is the this is the interfaces. So interfaces is back a directory, and that's the hero interface, and we essentially want to cut out this heroes. Actually, we'll just leave that there like that for now. We'll copy this, and we will put that into our service like so. Okay, so there's this get heroes method, and it returns the heroes. So let's go ahead and make that as well. So the get heroes will return heroes, Okay, so this is this dot heroes, and that will return that. So that means we need to inject that service. So we've seen the injectable with its metadata. Import, so we need to import that hero service into our component so we can access this data. So let's go ahead and import that. So import, and what did we name it? Hero service from, and then we need to go back again into the services, and that was the hero service. Cool. Now in the constructor we need to do dependency injection. So we pass it in as a parameter into the constructor. So right here we have private hero service, and we can just delete this here like that. I'm just keeping it because we'll need to set it equal to something. And okay, so we can add the function get heroes, and we can just copy this. So get heroes returns nothing, and we're setting this heroes here, which is an array of heroes, equal to this hero service dot get heroes. So that's going to come from here. Data's in here. We can reuse it, and we're setting this function equal to this. So that means we can use that from within the heroes component, and then we can call it in the ng on init. So not in the constructor, because that's not best practice, and reserve the constructor for simple initialization, such as wiring constructor parameters to properties. The constructor shouldn't do anything. It certainly shouldn't call a function that makes HTTP requests to remove server as a real data service would. So instead, we can use it in the ng on init. So let's do that, and we can do that in here. This dot get heroes, just like that, and we can see it run. Okay. So yep, and we can see that our data is still here. So just to recap, we don't want to do anything with data within the component. We want to put that in a service. So we created a service to separate that concern. We've set the heroes property to an array of hero, which is all these IDs and names. We created a function in the service get heroes, which returns the object of this hero type here, and then we, because that's a service, it has this injectable decorator built into the call. In the heroes component, we need to import the hero service, and we inject that into the constructor so we can use all its properties and methods. So we use private, and use its convention to call the call it with a lowercase as the first letter, but the hero service has a capital H, for example. So whatever this is usually the same. So we can make a function based off that service data by calling get heroes, which is the same as this function name, and because it's in a constructor, we can access that with this .hero service .get heroes and set this heroes, which is our property, which is instantiated, and then it's initialized in this get heroes ng on init lifecycle method. Okay. So at the moment, we're dealing with synchronous data. That is, it's already exists, and we're just sort of fetching it. We're not actually fetching it asynchronously, which is what is most likely going to happen. You have it in a database, make a HTTP request, and you got to have a response time and all that sort of stuff. So this introduces us into observables, and that's from an RxJS library, which we'll need to import, and we're going to go through the HTTP request later on. But just to simulate getting data from a server, we can sort of, similar to how there's a timeout function and all that, in regular JavaScript, we'll import this into our service. So let's go ahead and import observable and of. From RxJS, and get heroes will then be an observable. Actually, I'll just copy this for now. So get heroes will be an observable that is returning the type of a hero array, and to return to pretty much convert it into just basic data into a basic observable, we can just use this of sort of function. Converts this type into whatever type it is. So it's originally a hero array, but just sort of using this of function on that will basically change its output to an observable. So let's save that. Okay, so that's not displaying the data at the moment, and oh, that's right, because any observable you have to subscribe to by default. If you are not subscribed to an observable, that means it's effectively not in existence. So to be able to get our data back, we need to adjust the way we get the service in the heroes component TypeScript. So let's just copy this code. Okay, so this .hero service .get heroes, which is essentially this, and rather than setting a property to that, equal to that, we can just subscribe directly to that service. So we're subscribing directly to this observable. This observable is waiting, it's observing something, waiting for something to happen. Usually we're waiting for a response from the server, but in this case we just have an observable, then we subscribe directly to it. So and then the heroes, this .heroes So I need to comment this out so there's not the duplication error. Actually, I'll just delete it. So now what we're doing is we're passing the heroes data this heroes here is getting returned as an observable. That this dot heroes, which is essentially an array of heroes that can be subscribed to. This will set this dot heroes, which is just an empty array of heroes, or it's expecting an array of heroes, and this is going to be set to heroes. So the subscription sort of maps all the data that's been given to it, and with all the data, in this case all the heroes, we're going to map this property heroes to all that data there. So that should work now, and we can see that it does, and the application still works. And RxJS can be quite tricky, but it's quite powerful as well. Okay, so what's next? So we'll go ahead and we'll create this message component. So let's just copy this into here and then put it into the components directory. And this should create another component with all the files. If we open up this HTML file, we can just pretty much put this straight into the app component. So if I do a Control P and type in app, I can look at that, and then I'll put that selector in here, and we should see messages works. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to create another service called the message service. So let's do that. NGGS services / message. Here it is, our message service. Let's just close a few things here. Let's close that. We'll leave that open for now. We can close that, close that, close that as well. Okay, so open message service and replace its contents with the following. Okay, so let's just go through this. Message service. Okay, so in this service we've got a property, messages, which will be an array of strings, and that's initially set to an empty array. Okay. And there's this add function which takes a message as an input, and then it pushes whatever that message is to the array of messages, and then you can also clear it by setting it back to an empty array. Okay, cool. This service exposes its cache of messages and two methods. Okay, so we'll inject it into a hero service. Okay, this is like an example of a service within a service, and that obviously is a thing. So let's import this inject that into the constructor with the following. Now we can see that that's it's not dimmed out anymore. We now have access to these methods and this messages property within this hero service. And okay, so the idea here is to send a message when the heroes are fetched. Okay, so this is just simulating it. I think because this returns an observable, you might have to do some more RxJS sort of things, like sort of similar to a promise.then and all that sort of stuff. But let's just keep it like this for now. So this message service, and then that add, and then to that add function we're passing in the string hero service fetched heroes, and that's effectively going to push that message to these messages array of strings. Okay, so that's that. And then we want to display the message from the hero service. So that means in the messages component that we created here, we want to import that message service. Back one more directory and the message service. And what do we want to do with that message service? Okay, we want to also get that dependency injection in the constructor of it, and in the messages component place the HTML with this. So it's going to say if message service dot messages dot length. So I guess if it has a length that's not 0, meaning it has a message, the messages to display will be on a ng4, so let message of messages, message service messages, so there'll be a div and every message in the array will be output in a div, and there's also this click event that will clear the functionality. And this is a good example of how it's sort of like the services is like a global sort of state sort of thing. So in this hero service, when we're getting the heroes, we're sort of simulating that when we get the heroes, we're adding this message that, you know, the hero service fetch heroes, and that could be anything. And so since that the hero service is using the message service, and that will now be part of the that will be a part of this messages array. It also means the messages component, when this happens, this will now have one message and it will be displaying that, and if it had more, it will be displaying multiple messages. Okay, so that's cool. Yeah, so ng-if is a directive that only displays it if there are a message. ng4 repeats that, and there's event binding with the click event to clear it. So that's cool. So yeah, now we can see that messages has been retrieved. So if we reload that, messages retrieves, hello service fetch heroes. If we clear that, it clears the messages, and since there are no more messages, it just doesn't display it because of the ng. If we refresh that, then it'll show again. If this was like connected to real database or something like that, then that just wouldn't show. Add additional messages to the hero service. Okay. So I guess we're adding the message service. We're injecting that as well as the hero service, so we can inject more than one service just with a comma separation. This is from before, but it has this on select hero. Do we currently have that? Let's see here. This is heroes component. So if I do a control P, heroes component. Okay, so on select. Oh, that's right. So on select currently, it chooses this selected hero equal to the hero, which effectively, gives it the class and all that, and shows it here. But now, when we're doing on select, we're also going to add a message saying which hero ID we've selected. So that's cool. Oh, okay. I was just looking at the syntax. It's with the template literals with the backticks. That's why this variable is working here like that. Okay, that's cool. And get heroes. This dot hero service dot get heroes dot subscribed, and that's the same as before. Okay, that's cool. So let's just copy and paste that into our heroes component. And we get an error. Okay, so before I just copy and paste all that blindly, I forgot that I have different folder structure, so I'll just copy everything except for the imports. So from component, copy that, but I will also need the other service. So this is the message service, so this should also be message service. Yep, so in the constructor, on the ng on init, we'll get the heroes. We get the heroes, we subscribe to that service, and we return the heroes equal to the heroes. Okay, that's cool. And then on select we'll get this message. So that should all work now. So let's say we choose Dr. IQ, click on that, we get Dr. IQ here, and then we get fetched heroes from, that's coming from the, where is it coming from? Heroes. That's coming from the heroes service. Hero service fetched heroes. and then from the message component, which also uses the service, that's where the messages are coming from. So that's cool. So narco. Oh, and it continues to add it. It keeps pushing it to the array for everyone you click on, and then if you clear it, it resets the state back to an empty array. Yeah, so that's services. In the next video we'll have a look at this add in-app navigation. So that'll be to do with routing